I'd like to call this meeting to order. Did everyone get a chance to look at the secretary's report?
Yes.
Any
Move it be
questions?
accepted.
All those
Right
in
along.
favor? Aye.
Aye.
Most quick. Treasurer's report, Al.
Okay, as of right now, as of today, we have in our savings account, the money market fund, $2,877.69. The Robert Smith Fund, for that's where we have our events and we do our gifts. $18,849.13, and that includes the gifts or the amount that Gail just told me that, for the fall day, that's all paid up. And our general account, the checking account is a shade under $7,955.56. So it's about 28,000 between the three accounts, and all the bills are up to date.
Any questions? Get a motion to accept the treasurer's report.
Here's a couple more dues.
Get a second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Gail.
Okay,
CPA.
our fall festival is scheduled for Saturday, October 5th, with many activities being planned. We thank the OVA for your contribution towards the music for the event. Our fall cocktail party is planned for October 22nd at the chat room from 5 to 7. Invitations have been sent out. In conjunction with the fire department, we have planned to have a CPR fire prevention course given at the Osterville Library on October 24th. Pre-registration and payment is necessary and will cost each applicant $50. OBPA will pay the difference for our members. We have received very good response to this. We are planning trick or treat in many of the shops and businesses on Thursday, October 31st, from noon to 5 p.m. This isn't the same day as the Rotary Club Halloween parade, so we wanted to have something for the children on Halloween Day throughout the village. We will hold our 55th annual Christmas open house stroll on Friday, December 13th, with more events during the day on Saturday, December 14th. We have our permit from the town to close Main Street and Weano Avenue from 5 to 9 p.m. on Friday so that people can stroll safely. We are planning the crash service on the stage, on the steps of the Baptist Church at 6 p.m. They tell us that they will be accessible. So we're hoping. And we have a decorated golf cart parade along Main Street at 5:30 to escort Santa on the COMM Fire Department engine. We are requesting a vote to have the OVA sponsor 3 other musical events from the Bob Smith Fund on Friday night and the following Saturday, December 14th, for a total of $2,500, as has been the practice in previous years. We are also planning events on other Saturdays in December in hopes of having people shop local and support our village businesses. Schedules will be available when final plans are made. Respectfully submitted, Gail Nightingale. So if we could have a vote, I would appreciate it. Something you've always done, hope you'll continue to do.
Sounds great. Yeah, thank you, Gail. Can I get a motion to approve the 25? So the
Vice President's lady, yeah.
for the OVA to sponsor the musical event. I'll second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you, Gail.
Bob Smith would be very pleased. Bob Smith would be very pleased.
Okay, that's great. Moving on to town council report, John.
Okay, first, I'd like to talk about, we had a playground subcommittee last Wednesday. And basically, we were there to talk about, everything's pretty much squared away with the plan and what we want to do there. So we're going to talk about what specific colors are going to be in the report in place and other things. So it's just a small meeting. What came out of that meeting is that the town has decided through the recreation department to, we have three basic stages of this play. So the first is the tennis course, the second is going to be what we're going to do the playground, and the third is going to come later with the bathrooms. basketball court and that kind of thing. Well, it became clear that the town would like to push them all together at one time. We're gonna try to keep the same time schedule, but we're asking, the town council to vote. The fund will finish the project all at once. I want to get it done, get it out of the way. So that's good news. We got the timeline, and it's, you can't read it from here, basically it talks about construction. At the best case scenario, it starts September 25. Okay, so it'll be ready in summer of, it'll be finished in March of 26. So that's about as fast as we get us there. They're hopefully, so hopefully we'll have that in time. Because they were starting to talk about having it start in fall of 26. So we might get a little bit faster approval on that to go ahead. So that's good news. As far as the wind project is concerned, next discussion, New England Wind 2, which is the former Commonwealth, which is Dowston Beach, will be at the council on October 24th. They're going to come to that, but we'll have a vote on the council on where they stand on that. I counted at the last meeting, we had at least 9 approval of asking the state not to, that we don't want that at all. So I think that's in pretty good shape. The town council president, the town manager has also written a state and federal government concerning the wind blade failures that have happened. Wanting more information. Going on to the long range comprehensive plan, on September 12th, we had a meeting, there was discussion about the maps that were used in the LCP. They saw a comment on land use. Well, they didn't actually have maps at that time, so they started bringing maps forward. But they made some decisions on land use that they didn't show the public where they're talking about doing it. So we brought that forward, and then we're going to start from there. The one thing that's happened that has finally got, I believe, got the town off the market, and also the mark on the state. They're basically using what the Cape Cod Commission plan was, copied it to our housing production plan, and the LCP is trying to do the same thing. These are things like change zoning in our villages within a half-mile radius to have zoning by right for multifamily. But it finally came off of that for the first time, so it was a good sign. They said they were one of the such villages is historic and worthy of preservation. So that's, I don't know, it's not going to be a designation as far as I know, but I don't know at this point. You know, Gail and I have talked about that a little bit, where if you have a historic preservation, a lot of our villages are not anything to it. But it's better than what they started planning on at this point, with having, 2 and 3 stories and doing the form-based zoning type of thing. That's great. Yeah, it's the first time they've gotten off that. Not saying we're doing it, but they're going to come back in early January, new draft, taking into account what transpired at this meeting. So that's one of the things. We're going to keep definitely keep their feet to the fire on that. I asked a couple of questions, and one was about the redeveloping village centers, to do analysis of such redevelopment. Every 2 years, for sure, objectives are met. That's what the plan is now. The other question I asked is called change zoning and circumference around the villages, allow multi-family homes by right. These recommendations really don't square with historic designation, so they're in between. They're still in the plan, so we've got to keep an eye on that. And they said, like I said, they're going to reissue drafts and after the holidays. So hopefully there'll be something new and different. As for when they come back to the villages for their comments, what they will supposedly do again, instead of have you had a meeting before, and they did all the thing with the charts and stickers and all sort of stuff. I basically said, come back for public comment and listen to the public, and don't have the preconceived structure of what the meeting's going to be like. They said they would do that, so that's good. Both the LCP and the HPP called for a form-based development code that was recently adopted in ANS. It has been renamed Design-Driven Development, and the Cape Cod Commission calls it Form-Based Code Light. It was also interesting to hear that Independence House at a site plan review meeting say that they did not know the new zoning applied to its land, the land next door to the church. I heard about it. They're going to build a demolish and replace and build a 40 unit apartment building, but there's zero setback with Independence House. The Independence House is the house for battered women and that kind of stuff. It's in Hyannis. It's actually, the building is right on the line, it's no setback at all. And they found out that they were actually part of the form-based zoning in that part of Hyannis, and they had no idea that was the case. So, this is sort of getting a little bit of this form-based thing they're trying to put here.
What do they mean by form-based?
Form-based is a kind of zoning where you bring all buildings that are on a main street like Hyannis, and like 40 is here, they bring all to the front of the lots with right up to the sidewalk, and all the way back to the back of the lots with no extra parking. They want basically cubes that are 3 and 4 stories high in Hyannis, so they have the most amount of floor space for housing underneath, just above the shops and stores. Problem is they're not counting for the growth in amount of car living. And they think people going to the attitude from the old planning department director no longer here was that everybody will live, walk and play, they don't need cars. It's just crazy, and they're still on that a little bit, so we're trying to push them on that, and we're keeping a close eye on this, and the LCP is important here.
A lot of the people.
Yeah. Yeah, so a lot of that's gonna come through the ad hoc committees. I'm on the ad hoc zoning committee and the housing subcommittee, both of those. And the housing is actually making some real progress, they're coming with some forward with some ideas that are totally different from the housing that were coming from above. Basically saying we need to go and find these orphan, I call them orphan properties, and around town, they're owned by the town, but they're smaller than they're allowed in the zoning, to build smaller units on a smaller basis with a higher amount of affordable space in those towns. We have a total, I think, 4.3 acres here in Osterville, which is one of our old mill, and I think there's one on pond, and been owned by the housing building for 30 years now, and they've never built on that. Instead, they originally wanted to go to Darby and put a huge complex up there. We're gonna actually go that direction, so we can put smaller places and some for the elderly and that kind of stuff, and be less of a footprint on each of the properties, each of the villages. So I think that's the way to go. Each with the character of the villages, doesn't ask for all this craziness that they're talking about changing the zoning downtown. One of the things we talked about in the last zoning meeting, most of the committee is on the same side as zoning enforcement. We don't do any zoning enforcement, and we heard of a number of people going ask who have the same problems, where they have these home conversions, where there are tradesmen taking over homes or using their homes for their businesses. Now, that's not allowed in the residential area. We do have a problem with not having a lot of bay space for these contractors to build their businesses. In fact, when the Independence Park was first built, that's what it was asked to do, was to put that group of construction people with bays in a lot of those areas on Independence Park, so they have places to run their offices and run business out of. Okay, and so we're getting a lot of that in homes now, and it's driving people crazy. So we're going to try to work out having maybe even splitting off the zoning enforcement from the building director of the department. Have some own group of a couple of people that will do that on a regular basis, which would be good to see. So that's what I have, and maybe any questions.
John,
Yeah, Bill.
didn't we talk about submitting all LCP at the last
We did.
meeting?
Heather's been working on that also, and what they decided a long time ago. We had this argument with that town manager in this room a couple of times, where he tried to explain why he wanted to get away from having the villages have their own, which we've done for, as far as I know, we've done forever. But basically, it really tied into their development requirements and desires and the coming sewers, so they wanted to take over and be able to, they would push this from on top. So that's caused a lot of pushback from people like me, and what I just discussed is part of it. So we're keeping an eye on it, and trying to change the ship to have it more public input into this process, because the public is not buying it. And the LCP committee made it clear that they don't start turning their direction. It's not going to even get, it's dead on arrival. So, which still getting pushback and push forward from people who are housing advocates and all this. We need a housing this question out. And we don't think we need to change the character of every one of our villages to meet these requirements. Suzanne, yes?
Yeah, I'm really interested in the zoning enforcement because I've heard so many people, especially in Hyannis, complaining about lots that are really being used. However, I'm wondering if we'll be able to not, catch in the net an electrician with a truck who works out of his garage and is respectful of his neighbors. You know what I'm saying, John, is that some of these companies, they fill up their lot with trucks and equipment
Yeah.
and everything. And I certainly would hate to burden the family man who's just, doing a trade and gets in trouble on the zoning side. I don't think that's what the intention is.
It's not the intention
Right.
also, if you're not causing a problem and people aren't calling about you, you're not gonna get this.
Right,
Okay, so, we've got a big enough problem to deal with people who are taking advantage of it,
yeah,
and then that'll be basically what we're after.
yeah,
If you're not, like I said, if you're not causing your neighbors, indigestion and doing it the right way, that's fine, because there are a lot of businesses. But it has rules, we have rules, you can't have any, you only have a certain amount of vehicles,
right,
you cannot put any of the construction materials outside of the house, that in the home. Okay, so those are things that keep it from getting out of control.
Oh, good.
So.
some of the properties in Hyannis are a real mess. I mean, and I really feel for the neighbors in those neighborhoods.
That's what we're getting.
Yeah.
We're getting people discussing that, their quality of life has gone downhill and their rights are the same as the person next door.
Right.
The person next door doesn't have to. So we're working on that. That's what the enforcement's gonna be.
Got a question on that. Some of these contractors that have been there for a long time, whether it's family business, how do you handle that?
I don't think there are, and like I said, I don't think we're gonna be bothered unless they're causing major disruption. And it's gonna be difficult, with new people coming up and saying, not been this for years, that kind of stuff. But if we can have some rule and regulations and guidance on that kind of thing, then we have people to help it.
Yeah.
Does the town get a lot of complaints on that right now?
We do.
Oh, yeah,
And some of these pictures, you see them just, it's running a full-time scrap metal business right in front of the front yard and this kind of stuff. So if you bought your house to, for your own self and we get this next year, it's really our rule that can't be doing that. But
Is there any zoning enforcement now?
not very low, let's put it that way. And there's been pushback on that, unfortunately. And that's why I think it might be better to take it out of the building director, it's his office. And put it in a separate group that would do this. I'd say group, maybe a couple of guys or something. We also want things like that. It's not only businesses, but it's Airbnbs, parties out of control, and enforcement of those rules also. And we're making it clear we want these people to be working on these. When it's actually the easiest time to call the line, the person will be right there. So thought about this a long time. We're trying to, I'm trying to, it's just one of my pet peeves because I've had it in my neighborhood.
And so how does it, because when you first brought that to all of our attention, that it was probably before COVID.
Yeah.
Is that calmed down at all? Was that still an issue with some of these people coming from out of town having wild parties and?
I think at least all I know is from first-hand experience, one in my neighborhood has actually mostly turned over to a home conversion where they're doing construction outside and leaving all these stuff outside. But the noise and stuff is gone, but what I've heard and seen, most of these postings on VRBO, Airbnb now say, absolutely no extra people in the house, absolutely no parties, absolutely no. So
They're trying to police down there, right?
I think a lot of these, not all of them, but, and of course, we're not there watching, we don't know what they're. But we want to make sure that there's teeth in that law, because, and there'll be new regulations that are coming out of the zone, something on here, that be said very, the next 6 months. Because this needs to be happening, we have, regulations that people follow and go from there. So I don't think we can outlaw them, but a lot of the housing problems we're having is because those houses have been converted to Airbnb.
Yes, the year
I
round.
want to take the incentive out of somebody to buy a house. Don't live in it and buy an investment and just Airbnb it. The only way to do that is cut down on days they can rent it. And I think we're gonna try to do that. And that keeps with the history of here, where people for years, down and stuff, they'll move out of their house for a month in the summer and they'll rent that thing and then they'll have their taxes paid on property taxes paid. It's been happening for years here. We don't want to cut that. We don't want to have the entire summer having revolving door parties at some stuff. So we've got to find a sweet spot where it doesn't send people, oh, this is a great investment, I buy this, and then you've got all these people on making plenty of money. And we need to take that away, that people who live in the homes can rent it for a period of time, pay some of the bills, but not have strictly a business.
Can you talk about the ADU by right?
Yeah.
What that the state,
State just came up with a new legislation. We have fought to keep that, if you build an ADU, accessory dwelling unit on your apartment, on your house, you have enough space for setbacks in your property. And you can build it, say, 900 square feet or less, that's what the rule is, and you have the right to rent that as just a separate dwelling unit. But the thing we had passed here, in fact, there's a lot of us involved in this at the time, saying, yes, but not both at one time. You can't rent both. Well, the state just overruled that. So there will be people buying homes, on a large lot and put a home on there and multiple units. And it would be more to the larger acreage properties because it's a question of dollars and cents still really makes sense for the person to do that and get his money back. So.
and the town will have nothing to say
I
about
don't
it?
think the town can be, I don't think we can override the state.
I think you can adopt reasonable regulations around that.
Yeah.
But not those specific things, you're right, but
Yeah.
I think the town could do some stuff around the edges
Yeah,
to do some regulation, but I think that the you can rent both is now in the law.
so we're gonna be looking at all, it's gonna come down to the short-term rentals and on the subcommittee. And the reason why the subcommittee is this, we decided that we wanted to fast track some of this stuff. And to tell you the truth, some of the old committees that they were stuck on stop and they weren't willing to listen about anything else. So we put a lot of the councils on those committees to get through the blockages and start working on some of the things that make our quality of life here a little bit better.
Excellent, John. Appreciate all the work you do. Exactly. Any other questions for John?
I was just gonna say something, so I've been watching the meetings, they're on YouTube, by the way, you can watch the ad hoc zoning and housing meetings. And, that zoning meeting with Brian Florence was really interesting, actually, and it really shed a lot of light on businesses who really don't have a place to put their trucks. And there's something to think about, a little off Independence, there's that area there where people, we need more of that. Just, I think that's what my takeaway was, we need more land or somewhere in Bristol where people can rent a bay or do something and put their trucks there. Because right now, a lot of businesses are putting them in Falmouth and Sandwich somewhere, and they're driving over, picking up their trucks or whatever and coming back. So that was one thing that struck me, that it would benefit Barnstable to have more of what's going on.
Alicia Friend, the president of the town council, she came and said that when she was talking about the history of Independence Park, and that was what it's for. So I think there will be an effort to actually make good on some of that and have some of that property be just for that. Because I think we do need it, and you don't want these overcrowding in neighborhoods with trucks and people running big businesses out of it. But that is economic growth in our town, we should encourage it.
Absolutely.
So we're not saying, hey, so I think that would be something that will come up in future projects on Independence Park. It would be something I would definitely bring up.
Yeah, and the housing meeting is also really interesting. I really recommend people watch it.
Those two committees are actually very good committees,
Yeah.
especially the zoning committee. Bob Stolpe runs the zoning committee. It actually goes, everybody gets, everybody putting their ideas in there. The zoning board chairman or planning board chairman is there. The planning department director is there. And we're throwing back a number of new ideas that have been put out in the past and see if we can move those in and move forward. So It's actually a great dynamic in that group, and also the housing committee is also critical. So we're talking about the housing is getting off this, we're gonna bump down these big huge things, 300 units, 20 of them affordable, and then your numerator and denominator never get big there. We're falling back from little over 7% affordable in this town to just the high sixes now. We're actually going back. Okay, so we need to go have these projects be, that's why I think town land has a lot to do with it, sold properties, that we can put, you know, all affordable in small development and not increase the bottom number. So we get closer to that 10% where we don't have the 40B that override what we need to count for housing. So that's it.
And there was turnover in the town planning department.
Yes.
Is it fair to say that the new director is more open to hearing our ideas? And
There's no question about it. That was one of our major pet peeves here as planning director. A lot of what we're dealing with now, and I've talked about just now, is because of that person.
Yeah.
They had this agenda, we're gonna do this, and whether you like it or not. And if we can hide the important meetings from the public, get it done before they know, and just drop it for a read in the second reading council, that's what she wanted to do. So she's moved on. And I think this guy, Jim Cutler, is gonna be the guy.
and he was her deputy.
Yes, but not, he wasn't there long, but, promise, yeah, a lot of people learned from that. In St. Paul's, I think I made it clear to them a couple of times, we're not going in that direction. So it's been very open-minded in all the meetings, and, either one has said, we're gonna come back with the LCP with a new draft in January.
Yeah, Pete, can I just say something about the LCP thing, just as a follow-up, because I actually just want to credit John for that. I had the LCP meeting on just as like background music during work, which I shouldn't be doing, but I do. And so there were comments about what the LCP used to do a little bit. And then there was this discussion about preserving villages as historic without that classic historic designation, but nevertheless preserving villages and the surrounds. And then John got up and asked a couple of questions which I credit him to sort of, because it then caused more information to come out. And that was the two things you asked about, the village designation and that stuff, and then the neighborhood zoning changes. That caused the Jim Cupfer to get up and say, I think he kind of said, we're kind of hearing what people have had to say and we're going to come back. But it was really good to get that on the record. So it was great that we were there at that meeting. And I think there were like 5 or 6 counselors there, which was a great deal of engagement. I think if anyone wants to watch that meeting and just hear what they had to say, I think it was the 12th. And it wasn't that long of a meeting. Maybe it was like a half an hour in or something like this. And it was also the first meeting where the LCP didn't go off in corners with their little flip charts and we just saw still life for 2 hours. They actually talked to each other and we got to hear what they had to say. So that was good.
This is the
The local comprehensive plan committee.
Okay.
Yeah.
September 12th.
September 12th, and maybe it was about a half an hour, and there weren't tons of Q&A, but that was just a really important exchange, you know.
Are you sure? I don't think it was the LCP. Well, maybe it was.
It was
So the
LCP.
first time that anybody, Jim Cupfer actually brought this without, he asked me to, talking about the historic
Yeah,
issue about the village. So they brought it forward, I think, which means that they are hearing what we're going to say finally.
Yeah.
Because I think they've gotten a number of people saying, this is going to come to the council, this is going to be thrown out. So why are you wasting your time? You know, you just start listening to the public about what their desires are. And it's an housing. Okay, it's not going to be these, you know, we're going to do 40 feet and plot it right into the Darby property, or something like that. We're going to try to get it so that the size and the style fit into our villages. You want to know that, and which is good. So
John, it's a little hard to send it here. Did I hear in your earlier report that the town planning was still pretty much in lockstep with Cape Cod Commission, and that's been challenged?
the LCP and the housing production plan both reflect on exactly. Heather's made a chart of this actually about the language in each of those. It's about, you know, changing zoning downtown, form-based zoning in the villages, not downtown, this village and other villages like it, within a half-mile circumference, by right, family places and that kind of stuff, multifamily. So that's what they were stuck on, none of those issues, and we've been fighting from day one, so. Those documents still have that in there, but from what we just heard, that they're going to come and rejigger those documents as of January. I think they finally may have read the tea leaves, and most of the council's not gonna vote for that. So, so we're hoping when we see in January what they come up with, it dispenses with a lot of that, Cape Cod Commission strictures that were just passed down from them. And for some reason, the old planning director insisted that we get their sign off on whatever they produce. We don't have to, we're our own, basically, it's not a town of Barnstable, it's like the city of Barnstable. And, we have our own planning department, we need to follow Cape Cod Commission. So, and you'll see this same people who voted on the Cape Cod Commission, well, one of the person is the head of the LCP. Writing these things, and now we're bringing it down here. There's another couple of people on that. And I've railed against this for years about this conflict of interest. And same thing with the short-term rentals. There's a thing that there's one of the problems that they want short-term rentals, they want to pay people who have short-term rentals, not the short-term rent. I don't see that how we can pay them enough considering how much they make, you know, to make up for that. But why are we paying anybody not to do something we don't want in the first place? Why don't we regulate it out of existence, or regulate it to the fact that not no longer a problem? That's where I think we want to go, to regulation. It's not going to be paying anything. We have one person who's down to developer. The developer has 58 properties listed as short-term rentals. Imagine if, okay, he rents maybe during the summer, he rents 2,000 a week, times 58. It's a huge number, and it's great that he actually was involved in making this policy, but no, it's just not going to happen. And so we'll try to fight that.
I actually felt, would you agree with that? When we had a presentation by the town, the young lady that presented it was, in my opinion, in lockstep with the Cape Cod Commission, and she even in the talking said, which I think you just mentioned, that their goal was to be able to please and have our town plan approved by Cape Cod Commission.
Yeah.
And which to me is totally erroneous, and it sounds like you're really pushing back.
Yeah.
And it's hard because we even got, you know, do you feel that the town planning group is still like that essentially? They're in lockstep with, and you have to fight the town planning committee as well as in order to do A
Well,
and
like,
B.
so we have the new planning director, the past one was adamant about this, wouldn't get off the jump line no matter what. The new one is more open-minded, we made it clear that this is not the way we're going to go. And, you know, like I said, some of these people who made the rules over the Cape Cod Commission, one of them's running the LCP committee. Okay, and also was involved in making this proposal. It just all of a sudden showed up at the Cape Cod Commission about how we're going to pay people not to rent their Airbnbs. Well, we tracked that down, and it wasn't something that came up from the public. It was something that I think the chamber put in. Okay, and this person was used to be part of the Chamber of Commerce. So, and the person was really interesting, I'll just tell you this person making these rules about paying Airbnbs actually owns an Airbnb on their own property, an acre and a half. Okay, an acre and a half of their own property, and this is the one that puts all this housing for locals and doesn't put locals in the housing area. So this is the kind of thing that I've been involved with for years, and that's why I ran for office. This stuff's kind of stuff, it's double dealing, and I've made us think about it in front of the town and the town lawyer and that kind of stuff.
I remember asking the former planner when she was here trying to execute a SWOT analysis that kind of went over like a lead balloon. What the Cape Cod Commission, what sort of enforcement the Cape Cod Commission has in terms of these ideas, and the answer was none. In other words, you know, what will it do for our town? And the answer was, we get advice.
Get advice.
And, you know, for just to, you know, being, like you say, lockstep with these crazy ideas that don't understand the villages and the towns. And they have no authority to enforce what they're saying and thinking and wanting. I think we all have to remember that.
But I really fear, and from what I read, Cape Cod Commission has $10 million a year of our tax money. And, they're very independent, and I find them to be very DEI oriented, and it's deep, it's like the deep state. So you've got a real hell of a battle on years that they may think that when she made the presentation, she basically said, we want their approval, we're writing it. Then they get it from there, and they just basically, thank you for the good battle, and it's gonna continuously be a battle.
Many of you were here when those meetings came.
Yes.
She stood up there and said, this is what we're gonna do. I said, why do you need to do this? It's all in advance stuff. And, you know, and then we even keep on going the way we're going. So it was, the person is somewhere else now, which is good for our community.
Yeah.
And we are trying to wrestle back major decisions about housing and zoning back to the public as a seat. So I'm really a stickler on that. And that's why I ran. I'm tired of this top down, the same group of 20 people who are involved in each one. They go from one office to another, to housing, to zoning, to housing, to the Cape Cod Commission, or go somewhere else. It's a revolving door of these mid-level executives, and they're all on the same page. And, they think.
Thank goodness we have you.
Thank you. Well, my best, but just one, but there's I think there's 4 or 5 of us, at least in the council, who've had enough.
So, and can I just say something, because everybody always says there's misinformation if you say things right. So I just want to sort of, this is my footnote drop in real time. The person who's chair of the LCP now, had been on a Cape Cod Commission committee. And the charge of that committee was to go and influence town zoning. And I'm like, well, you're the chair of the local committee, and then you're responsible to push the Cape Cod Commission overtly as like your statement of purpose. You know, so it really is like super crazy to people.
And this person
In
was at
fact,
that,
in fact.
but also this person was at that, they advocate
Right.
for a housing
beginning,
committee in another
right.
town.
Right, so it's just factual. I just want to, if anyone needs a footnote, I'll write one. Right?
Yeah, I say these things and they say, well, it's full of, misinformation, but I don't say anything that's actually not.
Yeah. And people,
They like to say that because they figure you're never gonna come up with proof.
right,
And the thing is, I could sit here and show it, or I could have brought it tonight, but I didn't think I was, I did this conversation, but. They like to say that about people, that they don't think you know what you know. Okay, and a lot of us watch a lot of meetings, see actual people doing these things. Heather's very good at that. She'll write a document, click here, and you'll hear the person saying exactly what they're saying on a public meeting. But they realize most people don't pay attention, right? So they'll deny it, and will say, oh, no, you're full, you never planned on doing that. Well, they never planned on changing zoning in the village. We hear that all the time. And it's still in all 3 of those documents. So.
Great job, Heather, for following that, for pointing these out, which is, I agree with you, John, they're hoping that people want to pay attention.
Yeah.
But, thank God for you for pounding the pavement, and just staying in their face and exposing yourself. So I think it's, we're making a lot of progress. Going in the right direction.
Not that popular with town lawyer. It's funny on the, it's funny when you ask for recusal. Town lawyer basically says, the state law says the recusal are up to the person. Okay, well, the person who's going through all this, has been on this committee of the Cape Cod Commission over here, knows that, and they also know they have an Airbnb, they know all the stuff. But if they're not forced to recuse, they're not going to recuse, because they know, and they say, well, most honest people do this, well, not everybody in government is honest. And that's what we have. I've been fighting for that, find a direct conflict, because we need to take that person off, and off whatever committee they're on. Okay, if they don't disclose it from the very beginning, when they put their name in for a committee, that's the automatic dismissal. Okay, this person just came up, did this last week, although this LCP was going on for 2 years. I mean, not the Cape Cod Commission thing is going on. And so it's like, that's not good enough. I mean, it's only when you get caught, you just say, I put in the thing, said I think possible, there's a form you can put in to the town, says there's a possible conflict of, appearance of conflict of interest. I'm gonna put that down. So that when I'm here, I'm letting you know, so I've decided that I can, be honest and be fair on whatever issue.
Does anybody ever check them?
Yes. only recent.
I go over and read them.
I wonder if there's any guidelines, I do, somebody, you know, nobody cares.
Exactly.
Yeah, I had this, you seem to make, you know, I'm glad.
There's
I'm
no-
not spoken now because I don't have to fight against this, I'm actually on it now.
Yeah.
So,
There's no.
we're all here during those meetings, and standing up, and I know this person has a conflict of interest, and they're trying to tell you this is all fine. And so, being my personality, I'll call it out, and I don't mind doing that. Okay, it's different now, because I'm on the council, and I don't have to fight against this, because it's, you know, I can call it out from behind the scenes, say this is stuff. So, yeah, it's just really one of my best groups, and everyone.
Good to see.
Yeah, right.
Right.
I have just one question that goes back to the ADU issue, and I could ask this question tomorrow too.
Yeah.
And that is, that, you know, Pete, you serve on the water department as well. Committee. If all these ADUs get built by right, is there gonna be enough local groundwater to support that kind of development? Because if you put a separate home at every site to handle it, you know, you're gonna have toilets, sinks, washing machines, showers going on, and you know, we have a quote unquote sole aquifer. I mean, how much is too much? And has the water department, you know, ever worried about that? You know, because I remember Jimmy Crocker saying, like, you people don't know this, but the towns are already in a position of selling water to each other because they can't meet the demand. So what happens when all these ADUs go up everywhere and toilets are flushing and, you know, sinks are running? If we already are in water trouble, you know, how is that gonna help them?
Yeah, can I say something to that? So just today, weirdly, I sent an email to the town planner. Because I talked to some folks in Hyannis who were really concerned about all the growth there. And it really, this 40-unit housing thing on where a church used to be, kind of puts a spotlight on that growth, right? So I just asked the town planner if the town, when it adopted that form-based zone thing, which says, look, you can go up 3 or 4 stories and you don't need a setback. And the density is up to the developer. So you could have like 2 or 3, you know, huge condos, or you could have, you know, 40 tiny condos, right? It's just up to the developer and the parking, and then they reduce parking. So my question was, did they do analysis and do they have data or a study that would just be smart, going exactly to your question? If every one of those properties built up 3 stories and went the whole footprint, and were presumed, just say 1 bedroom, or maybe half 1 bedroom, half 2 bedroom, whatever assumptions you want to make. What is the effect of that on the wastewater system, on the water system, based on just average usage, and traffic, right? That's like, just people do that, right? You just pretend and make assumptions and then say, can we handle that? So I'm hoping that the town actually did that before they just said, you can just go do this. And if they didn't, it should be a requirement going forward before this kind of development. This isn't even insightful, right? This is what you do, right? When you're planning the power system, you say, well, if the nuclear power trips and we lose the transmission line, are we still gonna be okay? Like, it's just planning.
It's the whole
Right.
picture.
It's just planning.
Yeah.
Right.
So when I get an answer, I'll share.
Yeah, there's a perception that we've solved our water problems, but we're talking about wastewater.
Yeah,
You know, when the sewage system is finally completed in 25 years. But nobody talks about the freshwater problem.
yeah.
And it's like, there already is a problem. So how is that gonna get resolved or addressed? And I don't think that they even really think about it, to be honest. Nope. I mean, you never hear anybody mention it.
Yeah, if they didn't do that
Maybe
analysis,
you do it the water
they should
department.
now.
Yeah, it hasn't
Yeah.
come up as far as, I mean, Cloud Lucky, because we've got, you know, we actually sell water to yeah,
There you go. Why? Because they need it.
Because they need it.
yeah, so we're, based on what I know, we're fortunate, we've got, you know, sufficient supply for a lot more growth, not that we want it, but it's, you know, we're in a great position on that. But again, the long term, like, that's a great question, because there's gotta be a point that it doesn't make sense, or that it has to. You have to make adjustments.
Or if a substation leaks a bunch of chemicals.
That's what. That's what.
It's obviously something we should know now before later, that's the
Yeah.
planning stage.
Oh, by the way, we don't have enough water.
I have a question, this new state law allowing, this liberalizing ADU development. Has anybody in town done a forecast of how many new ADUs would be built in the town of Parsons?
I've not seen that.
I mean, Bruce, your question,
Yeah.
you know, so my question is, just because ADUs are liberalized, does that mean there are gonna be thousands more of them in the town of Barnstable? You know, if that's the case, then we ought to worry about water usage and sewer
Right.
capacity.
I don't think we have the answer to that question. And I think a lot of it is tied to how we regulate Airbnbs.
Right.
Because if people are profiting from Airbnbs and that same property could add another smaller cottage, you know, then we're really just kind of compounding. it. So I don't think anybody knows, you know, exactly.
Well, I will say when the ADU matter was first being discussed by the now defunct zoning and regulatory subcommittee that was, you know, operating outside of its scope and all that and just bounced from issue to issue, it ended up doing ADUs. They talked about this owner occupancy requirement and they rejected it, right? It got flipped because of public pressure when it got to the town council. But there was a developer there who owns a ton of properties, and I credit him for just being forthright with that committee. He said, whether or not, well, the staff actually said, does this get you close enough to multifamily by right? During that meeting, overtly. And he said, it will depend on this owner occupancy thing, because and he said to the committee, you have to decide what you want, right? If you want developers to come in here and real estate investors and sort of gobble up the houses and turn them into multifamily by right, that's what you do, because that's going to happen. Because those folks will be competing with like local families or young families that just want to go buy their first house. Right, and their revenue calculations are gonna be really different if they can rent 2 units on a property. So according to that developer, he's like, if you want to sort of do the big infusion of multifamily by right, go ahead and let us have no owner occupancy.
Well, one of the things I keep thinking about is the fact that the entire town will not be sewered, contrary to popular belief. We are still going to have a huge population of properties that are based on septic. So my question is, now you're adding 1 or 2 bedrooms to a lot that the Board of Health will say, no, you can't do that because there isn't enough room for a septic. There, you know, that would be too many bedrooms. So I'm kind of wondering what the role of the Board of Health will be when it comes to this new state, you know, ADU by right idea.
I'll bring that up from the board.
Yeah.
I also spot something relative to what Peter was saying, which I realized that, we have been selling water to Hyannis. And that should, when the Hyannis does its planning, that should be brought out because they're operating outside their capability.
That's right.
And if that isn't well known, anytime there's a debate over height and so forth, you're not even providing your own water yourself. And needless to say, part of the problem is the pollution. It's serious pollution up to the north there where the airport is and all that. But I really think that to just have them get water for us shows that something is not going correctly, and therefore there should be more pressure put on them to do adequate planning relative to heights and other. You don't even have your own water now. What if we said we're not going to sell to you? Where are you now? Right? So I think that's an important point to emphasize.
Good point.
Suzanne made it the key, allowing both of these units to use not want to be over occupied. It's gonna open the door to that's to build it, because most people who own a house, it's not cheap to build a separate house.
Right.
It's expensive, I think, to sell, it's not cheap. And there's no way most people would do that. But if you're planning on maximizing return on investment, that's what we do. And so that's one of the things I think we need to do. I'm planning on talking about when we talk about short-term rentals. Is that we need to take the profit, find the line where there's somebody gonna buy that property, not gonna get a return on investment that will equal his desire to buy that property. That's the fine line. We still allow people in town to, let their house out for months so they can help pay their property tax. So that's the key.
Just one last thing on the ADU matter. When ADUs were adopted, the then planning director said it was expected to cause attrition into the current and former affordable family apartment program, which allowed people to build something on their property for their own family. And that was always in an affordability thing. That people have dropped out of that program a lot. And the town council didn't put an affordability component in the ADU program. So that's another area where you're kind of slipping backwards on affordable housing that we actually need. So that's something to look at, I think, when you're looking at the ADUs is what's been the effect on the affordable program? And should you put an affordable overlay on the ADU thing and can you, a little bit, so,
Interesting.
yeah,
That's working around the edges.
it is,
Yeah.
How many of the ADUs will wind up as Airbnbs?
that's
Versus-
prohibited.
That is prohibited.
It's prohibited technically, but then it goes back to the enforcement thing, right?
Was. Great discussion on this, thank everyone's, thank you, everyone. Any other questions on that, for whole business, I'm gonna have, Hector attended the meeting for us in this week. All right, there.
So in early 2024, Stacy and I bought a few shares of Avangrid. Suzanne also bought the sum of
Just one.
And the idea was that as shareholders, we might have a little bit more visibility into what's going on in the company. Well, on May 17th, Iberdrola, which today owns 84% of Avangrid, announced that they had made an agreement with Avangrid's board to buy the 16% of outstanding shares that they didn't already own. And basically take Avangrid private, and it would be a wholly owned subsidiary of Iberdrola, which is based in Spain and is the third largest power company in the world. So Stacy and I have a nice little $5.50 profit on our 5 shares.
I told Hector he has to write a check,
Yeah,
save Greater Dawson Beach.
So last Thursday was the shareholder annual meeting of Avangrid in Boston. And number 1 on the agenda was a vote to approve this merger, and they needed all the shareholders to approve, including the minority shareholders as a class, needed to vote by majority vote to approve the merger. So I got it into my head that some of us should go to Boston and attend a shareholder meeting. Turns out I was the only one who did.
I was good.
I was the dog kindergarten party, is it, whatever, so you're in the US, shareholder democracy is a big thing. European companies, not so much, it's very hierarchical and what the CEO says goes. So I was ushered into this small conference room, maybe 2/3 the size of this, and there were chairs, 30 or 40 chairs up there with 30 or 40 white men in suits sitting there. And then up on a dais, it was a table like this, mine was up on a podium. There were 3 guys, and in the middle was the CEO of Iberdrola, a man named Senor Galan. He's also the chairman of the board of Avangrid, but he's the CEO of the parent company. And then Pedro Azagra, the CEO of Avangrid, was there. He's the Iberdrola guy's number 2, and then the corporate secretary. So they open the meeting, and so they say, okay, anybody want to make comments? Anybody have something to say? And I raised my hand, and they handed me a microphone. And I had the floor for for 6 or 7 minutes in this small room. And these two CEOs needed to listen to me, you know, because in shareholder meetings in the US and in the state of Massachusetts, they're required to allow people to speak, the shareholders to speak. So I got up and said, I'm a private investor based in Barnstable, Mass, and all of a sudden you can see the eyebrows. And I said, you know, I want to talk about this first proposition and why we're voting no. And I went on to say that to take Avangrid private reduces the transparency of a company which delivers, in the first instance, public service, gas and electric service to millions of customers in 4 states, Massachusetts being one. And then I said, secondly, you know, Avangrid has this brand new startup business called offshore wind. And it's very important for people to be able to monitor what the company's, its financial performance and its risk management performance. You know, i.e., you know, making sure the blades that you put on the turbines don't fall out. And then I ticked off some of the issues, you know, degradation. I said there's a group, there are a lot of folks out there who are very focused on the offshore impact. Our group, and I named our group, is very focused on the onshore impacts. And I went on to tick some of those off, you know, spoiling of our beaches, you know, building huge substations on green space, installing, if all 3 projects are built in our little town, 20 miles of thermal concrete conduits underneath our roads, 3 new substations, potential contamination of the sole source aquifer, degradation of property values, which will result in turn in lower property taxes being collected by the town. If assessments go down, property value, payments, property taxes go down. And, you know, and the CEO of Avangrid, I was sitting there, he was taking notes as I was talking about it, and you could see him look at the investor relations person, like, this guy gonna wrap it up. In conclusion, offshore wind has onshore impacts. And you need to pay attention because Barnstable is the first community in the country to have this visited upon them. And there'll be a lot of other communities. If Avangrid builds multiple projects, there'll be other communities which will have to be partners of the offshore wind developers. And then they said, thank you very much, and we'll take your comments under consideration. And then they wrapped up the meeting. This was an 18-minute meeting. I took up about 7 or 8 of these. And then I got up and walked to the front. Well, the CEO of Iberdrola, he was headed for me. He wanted to talk to me. And he says, he's a very distinguished European guy. He has quite a Wikipedia profile, speaks 4 or 5 languages, very, you know, well-respected guy, but at bottom line, he's a salesman. And he said, Mr. Gunther, we've been doing these projects for years and we care about the environment too. And we want you to know Barnstable is nothing to worry about. We're going to do right by Barnstable. And I said, and you're going, I appreciate you have great intentions, but you know, you're up here at 60,000 feet with a company with 50 billion in revenues, 40,000 employees in 30 countries. And a lot of stuff happens way down at ground level. Barnstable is at ground level. We're at ground zero for this stuff. And, you know, you need to understand that what you're doing is going to have a major impact on Barnstable. I use one of Stacy's lines, which is, we've already got one of these projects. One is enough. We've done our part. I even put in Suzanne, you know, talking to the governor, and the governor says, oh, we have to all do our part. Well, Barnstable's done its part, I told the city of Gallant. And then I said, you know, if you really want to get a sense of the close to home impact, why don't one or both of you come to Barnstable and meet with some of our steering committee, and we'll show you the beaches and the wooded land that will be all denuded to build these huge substations. So the CEO of Iberdrola turned to the young guy who's the CEO of Avangrid, said, I think you ought to go meet with these guys. So the investor relations person said, I'll try to set that up. Well, don't hold your breath. Don't hold your breath, because once Ken Kimmel hears about this, he's going to say, oh, I know those people. I know their shtick. We've talked to them. Don't waste your time. But At any rate, it was good. Stacy said afterwards, and it's true, we never would have had the opportunity to get in front of these two people who are pretty powerful in terms of deciding what, if anything, is gonna go on in this town with respect to offshore wind infrastructure. So it was worthwhile. Maybe we'll get, Pedro Zagra to come to Barnstable. I said we'd be willing to go to Boston just to sit with them.
Hector, thank
He goes to Boston. They have a big office in
How
Boston.
early did you get up, Hector?
Right.
4
What time
o'clock.
did you wake up? to go?
Oh, I had to get up at 4 a.m.
Yeah, poor Hector. But Hector, thank
About
you,
1 a.m.
thank you for going into the belly of the beast.
Yeah,
And thank you for representing our town so well.
yeah.
Um,
Well, it's worth doing because these people, again, they're way up in the clouds.
mhm.
And they have to realize that down at the 1 foot altitude, there's a lot happening that's gonna damage this community, in our opinion, permanently. So,
The,
Real
the,
life consequences.
yeah, the state just put together something called the Interagency Offshore Wind Commission, which is all of the various units under Rebecca Tepper, EENA. And I just want to let everybody know, their public comment is due tomorrow by 5 o'clock. I submitted something on behalf of SGDB and I had to rewrite it a few times because I was getting so sarcastic. And, you know, there's still a lot of sarcasm in there, but I tried to tone it down. But it's 4 pages of, you know, you people are so committed to this. When Connecticut is backing off, they're really having second thoughts about going big on wind. And their attorney general is filing complaints about Avangrid's, you know, the stock buyback. The fact that we'll have no, that, you know, the country will have no oversight of these people any longer. That the Connecticut governor declined to purchase a whole bunch of megawatts that were up for sale. In Massachusetts, you know, it's like Maura Healey's driving this runaway bus downhill on this, you know, she just will not rethink it. So my comments were along the lines of, you guys need to slow the roll and rethink this, because other states are right now.
right.
And with
They really are.
every single one of these things is called bankrupt, except this one, this is like, you
You're
said
right.
they're gonna do stuff, no, they are not gonna make all these wind farms all across, because they don't work financially.
Right.
But we have a governor, it's a religion to say, no, we're gonna do it, can't stop it.
You're right, Al, they just, they're
And
gonna
all,
spend,
and all of us are
Yeah.
gonna pay double or more of electricity,
yes, and I will,
we can't stop it.
one of the things I mentioned in my comments was, you know, the tax credits coming down from the federal government are the only thing keeping these projects afloat and viable. They snuck something in one of the bills this year that gives Avangrid and other companies $50 million a year in tax incentives. That's our money. Those are taxes that we're not collecting because they've decided to favor these companies like this. And, you know, there's just the idea of putting all this junk in our ocean when there are much better options. All these data centers and AI, they're like, you know what? Forget this. We're going with micronuclear. You know, that's really what they're doing in the future.
Has Connecticut walked away completely? from-
No, they haven't walked away completely.
What about Wind One,
Wind One.
Craigville?
Pikeville is New England Wind One. That was purchased by Massachusetts, 800 megawatts.
And Connecticut's gone away from that.
They didn't,
They were all-
I think they just said, that's yours. What Maura didn't buy was the 1,200 megawatts from Dowses. But we're convinced there's an 83C5.
But I want to
solicitation.
I want to specifically go back to New England Wind One,
Yeah.
which has always been Connecticut. Is it no
Oh,
longer?
no, it's Park City Wind's gone. Park City is the nickname for Bridgeport, Connecticut. If they didn't want to say the Bridgeport.
Park City was
for
always
obvious
Springfield
reasons.
Beach.
No, I understood, but
Let's sit down.
they used to call it Park City Wind because Connecticut was going to buy the electricity.
Right, and they've gone away from that.
They dropped the power purchase agreements quite a while ago.
That's what I thought.
And so Avangrid's going ahead with the project, but they renamed it New England Wind One because,
And now it's Massachusetts.
well, no, yeah, Massachusetts just picked up the bid. But, they didn't pick up the bid for Dowses, interestingly enough.
Yes.
They picked up the bid for 1,200 megawatts of what is called Vineyard Wind Two, which is landing in Connecticut. You know, it's a mess, but Niantic, yeah. So that was an interesting development for me personally, but then I heard a couple days later that Mora is negotiating to buy nuclear energy from Connecticut now. And so, you know, maybe she's starting to feel a little bit of the heat, I don't know. But we have to save Delsas, and I think the town council is moving to stand with us on this and with the people of Barnstable on this. I hope that there is a resolution that gets passed at the next meeting that says no doses. And, you know, Mara would have a very high constitutional jump, as I like to say, to override Article 97, override the town. She'll claim, she's a little bit tyrannical lately. She might claim that I'll do it, I'll take it no matter what. Well, she'll have a big legal fight on her hands if she does, so. Anyway,
That meeting of the council is October.
that's an important one, a really important one. John, I'll publicize that on our Facebook page.
Yes, please.
All right.
Just one other comment, Stacy and I got a visit at home. Campaign stop, Mr. Diggs and his
Oh.
wife yesterday.
Oh.
And it was a fruitful discussion. He said, oh, I don't want Dowson's Beach either. And he said, I've been saying this all along. And I said, a year ago, 15 months ago, you weren't saying that, Kim. But he's also saying, oh, I want to listen to both sides. Anyway, in departing, he said, we really hope to stop Dows's. The Cobble Beach project, that's a done deal, and Park City Wind is definitely gonna go ahead, that's all done and approved. Well, I wrote him a message afterwards, telling him 4 or 5 reasons why even the Park City Wind project has some hurdles to clear. There's an appeal of one of the FSB interveners in state court. State of Greater Dows's Beach has a lawsuit. There are 5 open meeting law complaints that are being adjudicated by the Massachusetts Attorney General. There is the EFSB procedure to give a zoning exemption for the substation access road at the Knights Inn location. And I've forgotten what the 5th one was, but I said to him,
Calm water.
and I said to him, you know, Kip, you need to understand that you're misleading your colleagues in the House, and you're misleading your constituents if you're going around and saying, as you just said to Stacy and me, that, you know, Park City is done. Park City, the Craigville project is done. I haven't gotten an answer from him. We did encourage him to come to the comm meeting tomorrow night. Don't know if it's Philly's space, but you know, anyway, it's, you know, there's a lot of misinformation out there, and, you know, I still remember Paul Cusack 2 years ago saying, oh, it's a done deal. A done deal, and some people are still preaching out of the same hymn, oh, it's all done, and have to get ready to deal with it. But I think we have a chance of stopping Park City as well. That's what I would like.
One more thing I want everyone to know is that, the Board of Health, I went to a second, I was on the Board of Health's agenda for a second time. And, I think we walked away feeling pretty good about it. At first they said, no, the town's attorney said, we have no authority and we can't override the EFSB. And I said, we're not asking you to. We are asking our town's Board of Health to do a top to bottom study of the cumulative effects of 3 projects on the health and safety of the people of Barnstable. And you could almost see them shift their direction a bit, and the chair of that group, John was there as the liaison. The chair of that group said, well, we'll consider this. Now, we don't know if that's just kicking the can, or he really wanted Dan Lusko there, and I talked with Dan a few times about this. He doesn't want any more of these cables landing in our town. He thinks it's outrageous. Cobbles is done. That's it. Get out of here. And so they're gonna have another discussion, public discussion about doing what we've asked for. And I use the word commission, that we're asking them to commission a study. You know, they just don't have the horses to do it themselves, naturally. But they should go to the town, ask for the money needed to commission such a study. Because I am convinced if an independent person took a look at this, they'd say, what? You know, these people are being subjected to what in terms of extra high voltage electrical infrastructure? So
That was a great presentation, Suzanne. It did get their attention. 'Cause
It did.
Tom Lee before didn't want to deal with it.
No.
But this time he did it in a way that it was respectful, but it was, that's their duty for the protection of the health and welfare of the citizens. But
Yeah,
how can they not use it?
It's kind of strange, like they sit there and they talk about, a bedroom being added on a house, no. Or, you can have an easement, on plugging into the sewer system for 3 years. And those are the things they deal with. This is a real different thing for them. But I cited Article 3 of the town's code, which says they are responsible for ensuring that federal, state, and local ordinances related to the safety, of the people of Barnstable that's their authority. They have it. So, I think it was a good reputation of our town attorney's approach, which was you can't overrule the EFSB. Well, no one can, but that's not what we were asking. So,
Great job.
yeah,
And Hector too, thank you for the.
yes,
Yeah, it was a great story.
the warrior.
Very smart.
They weren't expecting you, but I'm sure they know who you are now.
You got the
They
Bible.
counted up the shares earlier. It's funny.
I'll vote no. I will keep my share.
You haven't voted yet?
No.
Okay, you lost your chance to vote.
Oh, it's over? Damn. It'll be taken away from me.
Okay, on old business, do we want to do any more on the housing production plan?
Yeah, let me just give a little status. Last time we talked about doing some comments. Those are still in production, I'll say, which means we're sort of kicking them around and making them better. We'll get those out to you, I think, really soon. So, and then you'll have time to really read them and think about them and suggest changes or whatever. And then Pete, I think you can, decide how you want to sort of process that. If people are comfortable doing it by email as opposed to waiting to the next meeting, you can kind of sort that out. But at the very highest level, I'll say, it sort of picks up on, the council saying, look, land use should be local, not Cape Cod Commission driven. Talks a lot about, the current draft talks about the qualities of Osterville and really how they sort of merit preservation. And then tries to, really lean into what, John, I think, got out of the last local comprehensive plan committee meeting, about changing things. So hopefully people like them and will add and change them and get those in, and they'll hopefully apply both to the LCP and the.
You got them out email before the meeting, it might be better.
Oh, definitely. Oh, you'll have time with them.
Yes.
Yes, definitely.
Great, thank you. A new business, just a brief comment on this, Calm Water Commission meeting, water department meeting tomorrow at the Centerville Fire Station, 6 o'clock. And it's a town council, the same water commission is the superintendent, Doug Murphy, I believe that was the attorney for Calm. And we're hoping Gavin Grid is gonna be there, or Patrick Johnson, who's a representative. And there's contract negotiations going on, nothing's been signed, it's kind of going back and forth. Doug Murphy and Greg Barker had put amendments in there, and this is what's gonna be discussed tomorrow night. It's very important because without that contract, which is like a host agreement, that they can't, Evergreen cannot proceed with the project until the water commissioners sign off on this contract. And I've been against it from day one. We did sign the one for Golden Beach, not knowing where that was. We thought that was one and done. Didn't look into all the dynamics that we know now that are going on. So, in my opinion, talking to the other water commissioners who are also against this, so that the question's gonna be, and it came up at some of the past meetings, and I asked Doug Murphy, our attorney, hey, what if we don't like the contract, we don't sign it? And he goes, I don't know, he didn't know where it was gonna go. Not fear, but can the state, back to Helio or even, can somebody override the water commissioners to continue the project? So it's gonna be interesting meeting tomorrow night. So if you aren't able to attend, I know there's a few people that are gonna be there, but it'll be an interesting meeting. It is very important because as Hector mentioned, that's one of those contracts that they don't have. They're gonna need to proceed with that. And I always say, as water commissioners, it's our duty to protect the drinking water for the residents. And the fact that doing the proposed sole source aquifer over the wellhead protection area, substations over the sole source aquifer wellhead protection, that it defies logic. And I hear today on the radio that they blocked the Falmouth gun range there because they were worried about the lead going, and not a mention of anything from anyone regarding the putting a substation over the sole source aquifer. That defines, it blows me away. You can ask my wife how upset I am. Yeah, makes me crazy, but, so anyway, see what happens. Yeah.
Where is the outrage?
Right, where, you know.
I understand from your writing about the hearing that, the cables cause so much heat that when you had to put in special water lines
Correct.
with heat protection.
Insulated, that's
Yeah.
correct. They're 2.5 to 3 times more expensive than the regular pipes. And then anything within 10 feet has to be insulated.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a big good meeting tomorrow night. And also, I'm gonna have Bruce comment on this. Diane Richardson, who wasn't here last month, obviously not here tonight. Has had, her mother's been ill, and she reached out to Bruce and myself, but Bruce, you wanna comment on that?
Yeah, so Diane's mother is in ill health. Probably during, from these days. And so Diane asked if she could step back from OBA for a while. And, originally she said that she would resign. Pete and I read what she wrote. And said to her, it sounds like you just are under a lot of stress right now, and our thoughts are, with you and your situation. Why don't you just take the time you need to step back from the OBA and think about whether you really want to step down or not, because Diane has been incredibly valuable to the OBA for years and years. And we just said, maybe just take a minute to think about it. And she wrote us right back today and said, thank you for saying that, for sharing the thoughts. And yes, I absolutely will remain on the OBA, and I just need some time all night to deal with my home situation. So it was really good to hear. And our thoughts and prayers go out to Diane and her family this time. So we may not see Diane for a couple of meetings, but hopefully she will get through everything that I can rejoin the OBA. It's appropriate for her.
Great, thanks, Bruce, appreciate it. Anyone else on this business? Public comment? Stacy?
Yeah.
Stuff came up that it's it's legal for older people, anyone to have a roommate. It's legal without their problem. But something that came up, I guess Betty termed it as an ADU like, but Mary Ann brought up the concept of advertising. Advertising program, or maybe, and I was thinking later, like really incenting people, maybe that live alone in their homes, they're on fixed income, they have some room in their home to bring in somebody else as a roommate, right? But really incenting them to do that and have it be affordable, have it be an affordable level, not necessarily charge of $1,300 or whatever, but charge of $800, and have there be a program where, the town or whatever other organization would give them the rest of the money. And I thought that was interesting. It's a small baby step to help housing, but there are a lot of people in our town I run into a lot, and I run into a lot of seniors. I drive for Meals on Wheels. So I meet a lot of seniors who live in their homes by themselves. They don't want to move. There's no place for them to move anyway. And they can't afford the options that are out there. But, they there are people out there that I think would bring in a roommate if they thought that they were helping housing crisis. And if it was advertised, I think that, that would make a difference, because even though it's legal to do it now, you know, people are like, well, you know, they don't have to about it, or maybe there's a program in place. And that's my.
Okay, thank you.
comment.
Anyone else? Great meeting tonight.
I'll say one thing about next meeting now,
Oh, I'm sorry. That's right. Thank you, Bruce.
because I think there's something important going on November fifth.
Yeah, that's what we
I
prefer.
don't know if anyone here knows about that. Do you, Suzanne?
No.
Next meeting is gonna be November 12th. So it's not election day, it's the 12th, it's the day afterwards. That'll be, you'll get an update on that, but thank you. Motion to adjourn.
You mentioned.
No, I'll be down.